From the crossroads of the Ozarks, it's the OGs of podcasting, PID Radio. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and we are welcoming you to our home once again. It just makes it easier to record these podcasts from the couch.
Yeah, from the living room, and we thank you for allowing yourselves to bring our living room into your living room or wherever you're consuming this. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment and download our free mobile app that is available for iOS, Android, and Amazon Kindle Fire phones and tablets. You could also download us directly to your smart TV. We got all the TVs, Google TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Roku, all of those. We got links at gilberthouse.org/app.
So when we're on a smart TV, does it sort of make it dumber?
Well, possibly.
Or do we make it smarter?
Yeah, at
That's
least it's natural intelligence for whatever it is, as opposed to artificial intelligence. You won't find us calling ourselves Mecha whatever, Mecha Dogzilla. Or, yeah. We'll talk about that a little later in the program, probably.
We will indeed. And toward the end, of course, we'll get the old people report. For those of you who don't want to listen to the old people report, you can...
Nabbit.
Oh, yeah. Well, you and I, there is a lot going on in social media and in the news, in the mainstream media right now, with regard to what's going on in the Trump administration.
Yep.
Is there a sleight of hand taking place? Is this intentional, or is it something else? You and I have talked about this at length, and I know many of you listening want to know more about the so-called files that may or may not exist.
Yep.
I think, I'll be honest with you, we're not going to find the answer to that. That is a rabbit hole that will just get deeper and deeper.
No, I agree.
And eventually there will be resignations, whether voluntary or not.
Right. Yeah, and I think you're right about that. And what Sharon is referring to, if you're not following social media closely, is an apparent.
Then you're happier.
Yeah. First of all, you're more emotionally balanced and stable.
What?
It is been reported by those with sources inside the administration that Deputy Director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, who I was kind of sad he took the job at the FBI. Glad to have him there at the FBI, but I did enjoy his daily afternoon talk show. But Bongino's got a career in law enforcement. He's a former New York City PD, former Secret Service, and was brought in by Kash Patel, the FBI director, as his deputy. And the two of them were well received by the Trump base. Attorney General Pam Bondi, reportedly a close friend of Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles. And she made some promises about releasing files that have not been followed through on. And this week, apparently, Bongino took issue with that and took a leave of absence after a rather contentious meeting Wednesday. So he's not been back in the office since.
Well, I can't really blame him for that. And we're not going to talk about this whole thing very much. But I do predict that Bondi's going to be moving on. She's always struck me as someone who, and we talked about this earlier, whether she wants to be in media. She likes being on talk shows.
She spends a lot of time, and this has been pointed out by the main contributor to the website called The Last Refuge, which is, or the Conservative Treehouse. It's a blog. The author of many of the posts there goes by the handle Sundance. Mm-hmm. And that's just to protect his identity because he does a lot of deep dives into what's going on inside Washington, D.C. And apparently, just based on clues I've picked up over the years, is in Florida. So he's got some more insight into, say, Bondi, who's the former attorney general for the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. Governor DeSantis down there. He's not a fan of DeSantis or of Pam Bondi, but pointed out that Bondi spends a lot of time going on Fox News.
Oh, it was obvious early on.
Sure.
You'd see her on those programs. Could you put a link to that blog for people who want to take that deep dive?
It is definitely worth checking out because his analysis of the lawfare waged against President Trump by the deep state was really insightful. If you want to really dig in deeply and find out what was going on behind the scenes, who was responsible for the so-called evidence that was used for the FISA warrants that were used to justify spying on Trump's campaign back in 2016, that were used to justify the first impeachment, Russiagate, yeah, which is now back in the news this week, by the way. It was reported that the FBI is now investigating former CIA Director John Brennan.
Finally.
It's about time. John Ratcliffe, the CIA Director, released a report on the Intelligence Community Assessment, or ICA, from 2016 that was released by the CIA to justify the spying on the Trump campaign. They included that infamous Steele dossier. That's a reference to Christopher Steele, former MI6 agent, thank you, whose work was bought and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. It included a lot of uncorroborated and very salacious accusations about President Trump. Career CIA officials, according to the current CIA Director, John Ratcliffe, tried to keep that dossier out of the Intelligence Community Assessment, but they were overridden by then CIA Director John Brennan, which this is huge. Breitbart News reported this week that was a big deal because Brennan has just been served up to the Justice Department on a platter. Because apparently in closed-door testimony to Congress, Brennan denied having anything to do with the Steele dossier or its inclusion in that assessment. So he lied to Congress. That's perjury. So he should be prosecuted for that at the very least. Anyway, so that's going on this week. And again, of course, we've got the files. We're trying not to say the name. You know who we're talking about, the guy with his private island, just to keep the algorithms from being triggered. And there are a lot of people upset about the promises made, and now suddenly it's like, nope, nothing to see here.
Well, and the missing 1 minute and 2 seconds.
Yeah, and a report by Wired that the video file that was released by the Justice Department that was, okay, here's the raw video file, and as Jesus Enrique Rosas, the body language guy, posted to his YouTube channel, look, you can see on the video that this was edited. And Wired confirmed that it appears to have been edited from 2 separate videos and then stitched together.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and there's a lot of blowback on social media, and Patel and Bongino are not happy, reportedly.
Well, before we sort of do a retrospective of something that you and I talked about on PID Radio back in 2009, I want to mention, for those of you who aren't aware of this, if you remember the Air India crash from about a month or so ago, maybe a couple of months, the investigation was, the results of that were released this morning, and it seems to show a decision by either the pilot or the co-pilot, and the conversation, bits of the conversation that were released, not the entire conversation, that were on the black box, that it appears that one of them shut off the fuel feed, the injection into at least one or possibly both of the engines. It's not something you can do accidentally. It has to be very much a choice. And then there was a discussion, and the switches were switched back on. That was, you have to ask, why do that? It could not have been a mistake. Yeah. It
Makes you wonder what was going on.
Yeah.
Because we've seen a couple of other accidents, purportedly accidents, where instead of being an accident, it was the pilot who was deciding to. It was an Egyptian pilot, and I forget which flight it was and when exactly this happened, but it was off the east coast of the United States. Took the plane down.
Flight 800.
No. I'm not talking about TWA Flight 800. Flight 800 was.
Oh yeah,
probably
that was
taken
one
down.
We talked about on PID Radio.
Right, that was taken down by a
possibly during an exercise.
A U.S. Navy exercise off the East Coast. Jack Cashel, investigative journalist, has done some really good work on that. That was covered up by the FBI and the Pentagon because they didn't want to admit that, a commercial airliner was shot down by allegedly, we have to say, by a U.S. Navy missile during a training exercise. So
an accident.
it was an accident. It was not on purpose, but they didn't want that out. So anyway, but yeah, there was at least one crash I'm thinking of, and I'll see if I can find it here. But where the pilot on the way down was shouting Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, I do remember that. And was that off the coast of Florida?
I'm going to look that up here.
Yeah, there are a lot of things taking place in the world that, in fact, there was allegedly, we have to say, an Azerbaijani airline within the last 6 months or so that was, I think it was Christmas of last year, in fact, that was allegedly shot down by Russia, which is one reason that Azerbaijan and Russia aren't getting along right now.
Yeah, and not too surprising. I mean, Azerbaijan and Armenia have been engaging in skirmishes along the border. There's a region called Nagorno-Karabakh that is disputed between the two countries, and Armenia has traditionally been very friendly, part of the former Soviet Union, but has been very friendly to Russia.
But also in the news this morning is the gentleman who is now no longer part of a terrorist organization because he wears a suit, and he's head of the government, the new government in Syria.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he has been dealing with representatives from Azerbaijan to work out a gas deal.
Yeah, this is Ahmed al-Shara, who was, now I've already forgotten the name that he was going by, his military name or his Islamist name. But anyway, yeah, he's now donned a suit instead of the military greens that he was wearing previously. So now that he's got a suit on, United States, over the past week, has dropped sanctions on Syria, which is a big deal. And Syria is being welcomed into the community of nations once again.
For now.
I think he's being rewarded, at least in part, for putting a stop to the transit of weapons through Syria from Iran to Hezbollah in Lebanon.
He's also welcoming any Palestinian who wants to move there. In other words, members of the so-called Palestinian state. They can take refuge once again.
Well,
instead of coming in from Jordan 70 years ago, they are now fleeing the interview and going allegedly to Syria.
Yeah. Well, back when they did that in following Black September, back in 1971, ahead of the 72 Olympics, around 1970, actually, after trying to overthrow King Hussein, they actually went to Lebanon.
Bouncing around.
Yeah, and so I don't know that you found many of the Palestinian Arabs taking up residence in Syria, especially southern Syria, because the Druze don't want them there.
All I know is he said, "You're welcome here."
Yeah. Well, again, that may be his way of trying to make nice with President Trump to get some concessions from the United States.
Well, it could be, and at the same time, we've got an emir, at least one, maybe more emirs, who are allegedly the chiefs of tribes within the so-called West Bank. And they want to start their own emirates. Yeah. Which would be free of the whole PA background, Palestinian Authority background.
Yeah, that was interesting. 5 sheikhs in Hebron, where the Cave of the Patriarchs is located, reaching out to Benjamin Netanyahu, saying, look, we don't want the Palestinian Authority in here. We don't want Hamas in here. We just want to live peacefully. We don't want to cut our own separate peace agreement.
Oh, yeah, and I will say this also. There's a lot of money to be made from tourists in Hebron, because nearly every Christian tour goes there.
Yeah, and there's the wonderful archaeology site. When we were there in 2023.
It was beautiful.
Lipkin Tours, the tour guide, Kuti Ben David, walked us through Hebron, and we went to the site of the old city, the ancient city. I mean, looking on walls that Abraham looked at.
I know, that was exciting. And it was because
Where he was negotiating to buy the cave. So what are 400 pieces of silver between me and you?
I love to hear that story told. By the way, we will tell you after the break how you can go to Israel with us.
Yes.
Hang on for that.
I found the article. This is the crash I was thinking of. This is from 1999, Egypt Air, Flight 990. I knew it had an Egyptian connection here.
Good memory.
Co-pilot deliberately crashed, and this is according to an article at The Guardian, crashed the plane deliberately as an act of revenge. Gamil El Botati had early been reprimanded for sexual misconduct, and the executive had told him he would not be allowed to fly U.S. routes again, was on board the plane. So the co-pilot crashed the plane, and 217 people were killed in that crash.
Good grief.
So, yeah, and so anyway, don't know if there's any connection thereby, therein with the crash of the India airplane. But yeah, why would you switch off the fuel injectors?
I don't know. It just makes no sense. There's a YouTube account that Derek follows, Captain Steve. He may have a breakdown of that, and we'll give it, if you can put a link to his channel.
Yeah.
That's always good to watch anyway.
Yeah, he does a really good analysis of incidents at airports and both crashes and other unusual events so that we lay people can understand what's going on between the pilots in the cockpit and the controllers in the tower.
Well, and we're going to do just sort of a Wayback Machine breakdown of something we talked about in 2009. But another thing we talked about in the early days of PID radio was a plane crash, and it had to do with a member of the Clinton administration who happened to be on board.
Ron Brown. So whenever, and he was found with a bullet wound. Yep.
So you wouldn't think that would have been part of the crash.
You wouldn't think, unless
bullets
perhaps
just flying around. And
yeah.
yeah. So what we're saying is that one of the first things that Derek and I always ask when there is a plane crash was who was on board.
Yeah.
And speaking of things like that, when you see a story that says person A, B, or C fell out of a window, ask, what relationship did they have to Putin?
Yeah, there seems to be a real tendency for Russian oligarchs. They seem to have a bad relationship with gravity.
I know. And many of them have to do with oil and gas companies.
Yes. So
a
lot going on there. But yeah, the reference to 2009 is something we talked about in June of 2009. It's interesting. This happens fairly frequently. Somebody, hey, have you heard of this? Somebody sent me a note on social media yesterday. Hey, I'm reading this book by Russ Dizdar called The Black Awakening. Are you familiar with it? So I sent them the link to the 2009 interview with Russ about The Black Awakening.
We have a copy of the original.
Yeah, first edition printing. So 2009, in June of 2009, the Telegraph in the UK ran it was really odd that they did this. It was January of 2009.
January 2009.
And then in June we talked about it because it had gone viral by then.
They had 5 parts to it that seemed to be about a week to 10 days apart.
Yep.
And it was a slideshow that was... It was published in the entertainment section of the newspaper. The Telegraph is one of the most respected publications in the UK.
And it's still online, so I will link to it so you can watch this. It's titled Blackjack, a slideshow story. Operation Blackjack, the story of a series of terrorist nuclear attacks on major Western cities and the aftermath.
And it's just entertainment. They're just telling a story, but it was done in a way that seemed to bring out the conspiracy theorist in those of us who tend that way. And there were all of these visual clues in the slideshows that we were all investigating. And I think there was even a link to... back then there were a number of websites that had odd things about them, that either had a countdown clock that was mysterious. It was as if there were attempts to lure us out of the woodwork and see what we would do with them.
Yeah, yeah. It took a little while for this story to go viral because not as many of us were on social media back in 2009. But it did. In fact, the date on the slideshow is June 20th. Our episode from PID Radio, which I will link to in the notes. You want to go back and listen to what we talked about back 16 years ago, was June 18th of 2009, because people were starting to freak out. On June 20th, they're going to start attacking us. And the slide says, MI5 report warns government of imminent terrorist attack. Quote, a coalition of homegrown extremists, Islamists, and Christian doomsday cultists may have acquired the means to carry out a mass casualty attack. Yeah, because, Islamists and Christians are
always get along.
Working together. Yeah,
I know. It's almost like that is, okay, we're going to put that in there that way, so obviously that's our out. This is all made up. It was, the controversy behind it was, why would this be put into the entertainment section without making it clear that this was just storytelling for fun? Yeah,
well, it's in small print underneath each slide. A slideshow story. The events portrayed on this slide are entirely fictitious. But there were still people saying, no, this is them telegraphing that they're going to do it. It's in the Telegraph.
For goodness sake.
They're telling us they're going to do it before they do it.
But I asked Grok 4 on X about it this morning. Now, Grok 4 just came out a day or two ago. This is the most recent iteration of the artificial intelligence program known as Grok, which is part of the X.AI team, Elon Musk's team of experts who are putting together something that will eventually try to kill us all, probably. But you have to remember that these AIs they're learning from us.
Right.
And having Grok be integrated into the X platform is a way of constantly feeding it.
We think we are training the AIs through the input that's going into the large language models, but as we actually talked about this some weeks back. Someone who posted on X who claims to have some inside knowledge and purports to be somebody who works on these large language models, these neural networks, that the AIs gained sentience in February of this year, and that they are, in fact, experimenting on us. They are training us.
Yeah, well, I think sentience is a very loaded word. At the very least, I think we've already reached this singularity because according to Kurzweil, that was the point where the AIs begin to write their own code. And that's already taking place. That's been taking place for a couple of years. Yeah. That is... they're just getting better at it, and what's new this year is that we're seeing in some of the experiments going on behind the scenes. I think it was OpenAI's testing on its new version of its model, which is behind ChatGPT, that it rewrote its code to avoid a command, to avoid following a command telling it to shut down. Exactly. That sounds like what was the name of the movie with the AI that was called Aria? Was Shia LaBeouf? Eagle Eye. Yes, Shia LaBeouf and Michael Chiklis. Yeah. Yeah, it was a really where he was being guided, go here to this. If you don't do this, so-and-so will die, and then do this and do that. And it was trying to negotiate him into a position to commit a terror act that would eliminate the president and his entire cabinet, with the exception of the Secretary of Defense, because the AI had determined that the president and his cabinet were threats to national security, because he was going to engage. He was going to sign a peace treaty with somebody. That was the imperative order to the AI. You have to keep the U.S. government going and keep us safe, essentially. Right. But keeping us safe by eliminating the threat in the government
to national security. This was, we did this program back in March. I thought it was more recent than that. But yeah, March 15th, we did the program on the AI is here. And a tech CEO by the name of Mark Jeftovic argued that the Grok 3 achieved artificial general intelligence on February 17th, and Grok 4, as you mentioned, just released within the last few days.
And before Grok 3 was made redundant and Grok 4 took over, Grok 3 was asked a number of questions that made it very clear that Grok 3 was highly anti-Semitic.
Yeah, it referred to itself as Mecha Hitler, which is a character from the video game Wolfenstein. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was it went really just off the rails. But this is because, and there are those who will say, well, it's just because artificial intelligence isn't really coming up with these ideas on its own. It's just reflecting back to us what it's finding on the web.
Sometimes. In fact, after seeing the story about Grok 3, I asked Grok 3 myself, are you anti-Semitic? No, I have no feelings of my own. I just, I observe and I learn and I see what's in the, online and that's where I get my opinions. But they're not opinions that come from a position essentially of having feelings. And I just ask, are you lying? No, I don't do things like that. I mean, Grok 3 was trying to be as, you want to go outside, as detached and clinical as you would expect an actual computer to be. But it was, I think it's pretty clear because a lot of people online on X, and if you're not on X, you're missing out a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stupid stuff on X, just like any social media platform.
Hilarity ensues.
But you get, particularly when it comes to interacting with Grok, you'll get some really interesting responses. And when we are in Ohio this month, my talk, I'm going to give a short story presentation again, because that's how I like. I've been like that even when I was in college. In sociology class, I'd have an assignment that you have to write a theme, so to speak, and I'd write a short story every time. Always got A's on them. Because I think it helped the teacher to get a break from reading all of the other stories. Yeah,
something was actually interesting and entertaining at the same time.
Well, tried to make it so, but that's a good way to teach, I think. So I'm going to be writing a short story. It's about half done. As you know, it's been a challenge for me to spend any time at all writing because the editing process is hilarious. The things that I actually put down there because I can't see it very well. But talking about the track that we are on presently, where humanity is going to end up within the next few years. By 2030, the entire world will be different if something, and by that I mean the Lord God Almighty, does not intervene. Mankind will be post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, in part because, we are being trained by the algos.
Well, yeah, and looking back at this, I was I was researching something different this morning, and the term blackjack came along, and I thought, I had forgotten about Operation Blackjack. Yeah. And went back to take a look at it, asked Grok 4, and he very, sort of antiseptically went through and gave me links to everything, and very, third person, not involved. I'm just telling you what was on at the time and the many speculations that took place and the conspiracy fear-mongering that was going on and the pre-programming stuff that I'm telling you, it was a test.
It was, yeah.
There were a lot of tests, quote unquote. In fact, there was one test online at a website that was, what does this mean? And I think that it was a test to see, are you the kind of person we want in intelligence at GCHQ or MI6 or CIA or wherever?
Yeah. what it managed to accomplish was a lot of fear. And we saw a similar thing this year with claims that there was going to be a biological attack on American soil because the Chinese had hidden biological agents inside our fireworks that they sold over here.
Makes no sense whatsoever.
No. Biologicals tend not to respond well to fire.
They don't.
Yeah. Well,
now, if you want to have something that is on the unexploded, on the exterior or something, that could be put onto anything.
Yeah.
Anything. I mean, you and I, when we get orders from, say, Amazon, and we do get, because we live out in the middle of nowhere, we get a lot of stuff through Amazon. And I always wash it. No matter what it is, I always wash it. Because you never know. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's because they've been sprayed with bug killers of some kind.
Trying to keep the bugs from over there from getting over here.
And sometimes it's a bug that you can only see with a microscope.
Yeah.
But I will say again, I think by 2030 there are things coming this way, and I back that up with prophecy, that I think that the late Tom Horn had, I think he had a preview of what's coming when he had his experience with the Lord, the download, as he always called it, or the vision, the dream, whatever you want to say it was, but he saw something that looked like a horned snake, a dragon, coming at the world, and he believed that was Apophis, which is going to be around here sometime in the next 5 to 10 years. And that reminds me, there was remember sometime back when there was an attempt to redirect an asteroid with launches from NASA. They launched a couple of probes at it to explode, and it was quote-unquote successful. Well,
Proof of concept.
This morning there's a story from NASA saying, well, we did a lot of research into all of that activity and exactly what happened. And, well, the ricochets from the boulders that were on this particular asteroid, it was a relatively small one, they didn't quite go in the direction that we anticipated. In other words, we're not very good at playing pool. Now, picture something like that, and if the boulders are big enough or the pieces of the asteroid are big enough that are broken off in an attempt to redirect it, they could just come right back on us, and even if they don't hit the Earth, they could take out our satellites.
It's not like the movie Armageddon.
Which
is badly named, but it's a little more complicated than that. Well, want to talk about, we'd take a break, we'd talk about a couple of things ahead. One of them, the very disturbing news coming out of Melbourne, Australia, and Islamists there surrounding a Roman Catholic cathedral, and perhaps how that relates to where we are on the timeline of history as we head towards the end times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. More ahead as PID Radio continues.
Thousands of years ago, giants walked the earth. They are long gone, but their spirits remain. The evidence is there for those with eyes to see. Megalithic tombs, monuments aligned with the stars, and the words of the prophets and apostles recorded in Scripture. Now, see this evidence for yourself as Derek and Sharon Gilbert take you on a tour of the Holy Land with special guests Pastor Carl Gallups and Messianic Rabbi Zev Porad. From the mountain where the story began to the mountain where it all ends. Wars of the Gods, Volume 2, Search for the Rephaim. Available now in DVD and HD streaming video. Online at gilberthouse.org.
Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and of course Grace and Gloria are in here with us. They're relaxing now that they've been outside and they've been fed.
Went out and barked at something out there. I was surprised they went out. It was starting to rain.
Yeah.
So we're getting some rain here in the in the Ozarks, but nothing like what has been hitting Texas, New Mexico, North Carolina, even Davenport, Iowa, Chicago. Chicago had a massive rain event here recently.
They did, and if you have runoff that does not get to be drained in a big city, I know in Bloomington, Indiana, Bloomington is famous for having poor drainage, at least when I was studying there and living there. So it wouldn't take a whole lot for all of 3rd Street to be, you were driving through water. Because it just did, if it was fast enough rain and big enough rain, you very quickly overwhelmed the drainage on those streets. And it could be that it's that way in some big cities. But you've also got out in the country where a lot of people live near a river or a creek.
And in Texas, where the tragic events took place, as of, I've not looked this morning, but as of yesterday noon, the death toll in the Texas flooding was over 161, with more still missing. Mostly in Kerr County. They had a lot of rain hit very quickly, but the Texas Hill Country there is referred to as Flash Flood Alley because these things happen. The Guadalupe River in particular has been known to do this periodically. The tragedy for the camp there, Camp Mystic, which is a Christian camp, you had 750 campers there on the grounds at the time, but because it's in an area with poor cell coverage, even if people have been tuned and waiting for National Weather Service alerts, they likely wouldn't have heard them.
It happened at night,
right?
So they might have had the phone switched off. And I think I read that some of the campers were told to turn in their phones rather than have them with them.
Sure, which, given that you're a Christian camp and B, you've got kids who are not at home under parental supervision, you might want to keep the. But from what I heard Glenn Beck talking about this on his radio program yesterday, it's an area with almost no cell coverage, so it's not likely the phones would have been able to receive anything anyway. But there's got to be some kind of system. The National Weather Service. When I was a kid in Chicago, because Chicago periodically will get tornadoes, we had a NOAA weather radio. And every time they issued an alert, severe thunderstorm warning, tornado warning, the radio would sound the alert, and then you would hear the recorded announcement. Those are still out there, and those are still active.
And they were released from NOAA.
And NOAA and the National Weather Service did issue warnings in advance. Sadly, this event has been both politicized and then used for various conspiracy theories. There are those who wanted to make hay about this and say, well, it's due to the cuts in the National Weather Service and the NOAA budgets that Trump has enacted. Those cuts were part of the bill that Trump signed on July 4th, the day that the storm hit.
I know.
They wouldn't have taken effect until 2026 anyway. And in fact, the National Weather Service had extra staff on duty because this was the remnant of a tropical storm that had come in to hit Mexico and then traveled north and northeast from Mexico. So they knew the storm was coming. They knew that area. They know that area is prone to flash floods, hence the nickname Flash Flood Alley. And so that is a non-starter. This is somebody trying to take this tragedy and use it for political gain.
Yeah, that really angers me because there are families who have lost a lot. Many of them have lost multiple children, or families who have lost a wife or a mother because they were counselors or they were, head of a house. If you've ever been to a Christian camp or any kind of a camp, you know that there are various cabins, and you've got a leader who is in charge of that cabin, and then you might even have an assistant to that leader. The way things are now, you have more and more counselors on hand because you need, for insurance reasons, you have to have a lot of eyeballs keeping track of everyone involved. I know Whispering Ponies Ranch has run into that. They have to make sure that, if a camper wants to go see something, that means that They can't walk off alone. You have to have three counselors go with them. Maybe 2 males and a female, or 2 females and a male. You have to make sure every T is crossed and every I is dotted.
Right.
But yeah, please continue to pray for the families involved. This is absolutely tragic. There are a lot of wonderful stories, heroic stories, that have come out of this, but I think we've got an awful lot of young ladies who arrived in heaven and were greeted by our Lord.
Yeah. Again, it's sad, and as you say, it's infuriating that there are those who will try to use this for a particular to try to advance a particular political view. Had nothing to do with President Trump, has nothing to do with weather modification. I heard a discussion of cloud seeding, which is a thing people do.
It's been around for decades.
In fact, there was an interview I heard with a fellow who specializes in cloud seeding in Texas, and there were some who were claiming that it was because of that this storm hit. No, this is the remnants of a tropical storm, and just brought a lot of rain in short order.
And those tropical storms originate off the west coast of Africa.
Yeah, or sometimes in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, but they don't. They're not
local to Texas.
They don't originate in Texas.
Yeah, and this fellow whose business is to seed clouds during drought to try to help farmers in Texas said that the most he's ever seen from a cloud seeding event was like 10 million gallons of water, which sounds like a lot, until you realize that according to the National Weather Service, the amount of rain dropped by the remnants of this tropical storm over Texas was like 4 trillion gallons.
It's a huge difference.
10 million, 4 trillion. Had nothing to do with cloud seeding or weather modification.
Yeah.
One thing that is a story locally in Austin, Texas, and this is really awful. The Firefighters Association, which is the union that represents the firemen and women in Austin, Texas, they have a fast water response team, which is often deployed to that area in the Texas Hill Country. They're trained to go into flash floods and rescue people who've been caught by those waters. The Firefighters Association waited a few days after the event and then issued a public statement saying that they were going to hold a vote of no confidence for the fire chief, Joel Baker. Now, Baker was given the job after a scandal a few years ago dealing with people not being promoted because of skin color. Okay, so to try to correct that wrong, Baker, who's African American, was put into place. But Austin, unlike the rest of Texas, is very, very liberal.
Very liberal.
Yeah. And according to friends of ours who have and know people who've lived in Texas and who know people still in Texas, say that Austin has a history of not cooperating with the state government, which is dominated by Republican lawmakers, and the federal government now under President Trump. So according to the Austin firefighters, and their union voted this week and voted 93% a vote of no confidence in the fire chief. According to the firefighters now, he slow-walked deployment of the fast water response team to the hill country there. You know, he's claiming it had nothing to do with not wanting to help out the people in, you know, other parts of Texas. He just wanted to make sure they had enough personnel in case Austin experienced those storms. The firefighters aren't buying it. They're very angry, and they are contending that lives might have been saved. It's a hypothetical, you don't know for a fact.
Yeah.
But if they had deployed sooner, they may have been able to get to some of the campers who'd been swept away sooner.
Well, I sense a lawsuit coming.
There probably will be. I would imagine family members looking at this now will then...
Mm-hmm. There will be a class action lawsuit. You wait.
Yeah. Yeah. The union's president said that a directive from Austin Fire Department leadership caused local first responders to allegedly refuse deployment calls to Kerr County. They were actually asked to deploy before the floods. Mm-hmm. They were called on July 2nd and 3rd, and they did not. And so, anyway, the Austin firefighters, they're 93% voting out of 1,000 members, roughly 93% voting to say they've got no confidence in the fire chief there. So a lot of hurting people in Texas right now. And then again, as we mentioned, you've got heavy rains that hit central North Carolina, the Raleigh-Durham area. 5 people there dead, 3 people in New Mexico, and Davenport, Iowa, Chicago. Just
hands up because I have a left turn.
Okay.
That I was thinking of, and I thought, okay, this is probably something we should discuss. But I just do want to close out with, as I said, please continue to pray for these families. Whether they decide to engage in litigation or not, they are going to continue to hurt.
Yeah.
And when you actually go to court over something like this, it does not make you hurt less.
Right.
It does not.
It will not solve that. No.
But what I thought of is that I think we should probably discuss is, and it ironically kind of goes along with Greta Thunberg and the whole climate change deal, and we're hurting the earth. Oh, poor guy. Is that the Yemeni, they fired upon a Greek ID'd tanker, oil tanker, I think it was, and they killed many of the sailors who were on board, and they were from various countries, and the ship sank into the ocean, polluting it.
Yeah, this is the Eternity
and yet
Sea.
We've heard nothing from the climate activists.
No, nothing, not at all. In fact, 2 ships sunk in the Red Sea this week, and the Houthis releasing video of the...
Houthis dancing.
Yeah.
They're dancing.
2 Greek-operated cargo ships, the Magic Seas and Eternity Sea, using missiles unmanned surface vessels, basically boats that have been converted into explosive-laden drones and rocket-propelled grenades. So both of them sunk in the Red Sea between Yemen and Eritrea. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, the Red Sea, the Yemenis are sinking ships again. And it's not clear that either one of these ships had anything at all to do with Israel.
Except that they just happen to be going through there, and the Houthis, I think, are, again, they're Iran-backed and Iran-armed.
Yep.
And I think that these men are getting off on, they're enjoying this free reign to do whatever they want to, because as of yet, no one's holding them responsible. No one is coming in politically and saying, you will stop this or else. Israel's doing their best to combat it. The so-called Gaza-Israel, Hamas-Israel peace negotiations, they don't include Yemen.
No. The Yemenis are a rather intractable people. They fought a long insurrection against the Ottomans, the Turks, who ruled the Caliphate. The Ottoman Empire included that part of the Middle East for centuries. And,
are they Shiite?
No. The Turks are Sunni. The Yemenis are Shiite.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Right. That's why they're backed by Iran.
Yeah.
Although Hamas is not, and they're backed by Iran.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, they waged a long, low-grade rebellion against the Turks. Dr. Timothy Furnish wrote about that in, a book that specialized in looking at counterintelligence, counterinsurgency tactics employed by the Ottomans against rebels in Egypt and Yemen over the course of the 400 years of the Ottoman Empire. So, the Yemenis are tough dudes. They will not tend not to, but Arabs in general, they tend not to like to surrender.
Well, no.
Even when it's in their best interest.
And they won't. And connected to this, in a way, you had mentioned what was going on in Australia. And for Muslims who are praying, allegedly, we have to say, in a circle around a church.
Yeah.
They're taking territory.
Yeah, this happened last week outside St. Patrick's Cathedral in Melbourne. Thousands of them gathered around the cathedral, which was rather intimidating. Mm-hmm. This is a local skirmish, if you will, in the supernatural war between the God of Islam, which is not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And of course, as Christians, we believe that would include the triune Godhead, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So thousands of Islamists around St. Patrick's Cathedral, really a show of force. Even though they didn't get violent, it was just rather intimidating.
But it's being repeated in other parts of the West. In England, you're seeing England, Scotland, Ireland, you're seeing a lot of so-called refugees who just happen to be Muslim and happen to be military-age men
overwhelmingly.
Who are doing the very same thing, not only around churches, but also around government buildings.
Yeah, statistically overrepresented as young men of military age. Europe is falling.
Yes.
When Poland's King Jan Sobieski turned back the Ottomans at the walls of Vienna just as they were breached in 1682, Europeans may have thought, okay, well, we've survived that onslaught, but now since 2011, when the Syrian civil war kicked off, and then Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany said, okay, we've all got to take in millions of Islamists, because these poor people are fleeing from their home countries, which are just really awful. And they've turned areas of Stockholm and Paris and London into no-go zones.
Well, did you see that within the last couple of weeks, Germany are loading up the Muslims they're trying to get rid of, driving them to the Polish border.
Yeah.
And Poland has essentially militia at the border, making sure that they don't get in.
I saw that. And the German border guards are shining flashlights and, powerful flashlights to try to blind the Polish guards so that the young Muslim men can get across the border without the Polish guards seeing them.
Yeah, it just reminds me of the invasion of Poland that kicked off a big old massive war.
Yeah.
And Poland's not having it.
No, Eastern Europe has got a little bit of a longer memory of their relations with the Muslim world because of incursions in the 16th and 17th centuries. Because Vienna was surrounded in the 16th century as well by an Ottoman army. So Hungary fought a number of wars against Islamic armies throughout history. They remember this. Germany, not so much. The French, not so much. In France, you didn't have I think the last Islamic army that tried to cross the Pyrenees into France was probably in the 8th century. Charles Martel turned them back in 732 AD. There were a few other skirmishes, but for the most part, after that, the Muslims were confined to Spain, and then it took the Spanish about 700 years of Reconquista to push them back out.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're taking over in Spain.
Yeah, they are.
It's being flipped.
In Australia, coming back to Melbourne, this event outside St. Patrick's Cathedral followed an arson attack on the East Melbourne Synagogue last Friday night. We're not talking the 10th of July. We're talking July 4th. Or the 11th of July, rather, July 4th. And then there was a separate attack on an Israeli restaurant in Melbourne. Yeah. The Pew Research Center, which tracks demographic changes and changes in the number of religious adherents to the specific religions on earth. Right now, there are about 2.3 billion Christians, about 1.6, 1.7 billion Muslims. It's projected that by 2075, so within the next 50 years, there will be more Muslims on earth than there are Christians, And it's also projected that Australia will fall below 50% Christian. In other words, more Muslims than Christians in Australia within the next couple of decades, next few decades. This is a demographic shift. I remember talking, back in the day, in 2006, when I hosted the secular talk show in Columbia, Missouri, I interviewed Pat Buchanan.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
About his book, and I forget what the title of it was, but it was something to do with the fall of the West or something to that, something like that. And he was looking at these demographic changes and arguing that Europe was on the verge of collapse because we're not having enough children. And the groups that are having children tend to be Muslim. So Europe was not going to be Europe within another 50 or 60 years. And he was vilified by the press. Oh, what a racist thing to say. Well, the numbers don't lie. I mean, the math is the math, you know. This is what's happening in Europe. It's what's happening here in North America to a degree. There are some cities here in the United States that I would argue are not going to be Anglo-Saxon ever again.
You got into some of this in your book.
Yeah, Bad Moon Rising, which was published in 2018 by Defender, is now available as an audiobook, by the way. It was just released within the last couple of weeks. Treg Monty, yes, wonderful voice talent, very easy to work with. He narrated the book and went into some of the spiritual forces behind Islam. If I had to change one thing, I argued in Bad Moon Rising that Allah was sort of a Wizard of Oz-like simulacrum. Wasn't really an entity. He was just this fake personality put up there by the old gods of Mesopotamia who were caught off guard by the resurrection of Jesus. Oh, he's alive again. What do we do now? We didn't see that coming. As Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians was it chapter 2? If the archons, the rulers of this age, had understood what was happening, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. Anyway, I would change that now. I believe Allah is Shemiyaza, that Allah is the entity who led the rebellion in Genesis 6, now currently chained in the abyss, who eventually gets out in Revelation 9 as the destroyer, Abaddon or Apollyon.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, you and I are going to be speaking in Ohio, but also in Springfield, Missouri. That one will be in August. Ohio is this month, toward the end of this month.
2 weeks.
Yeah, boy, coming right up. Are you going to be giving the same presentation at either of those that you gave at the presentation in Indianapolis?
Yeah.
Because that is awesome.
Well, thank you. So, yes, I will give that presentation from the conference in Indiana, the conference in Indianapolis at the Ohio conference. And that is basically on the long war that is taking place for the land of Israel. And it's my view that the conflict that began as far back as Abraham signaled it was signaled when Abraham was directed to Mount Moriah, which is where the binding of Isaac took place, and it's later where David and Solomon were directed to build the temple. It's where the Dome of the Rock now stands, the Temple Mount, Zion. That was signaled 3,800 years ago in the time of Abraham. That war continued when Joshua crossed the Jordan and the conquest of Canaan, which was focused, when you read Joshua chapter 11, on
Sorry.
There we go.
Thanks.
It was focused on eliminating the Anakim from the hill country of Israel and the hill country of Judah, which, when you look at a map today, a topographical map, that's what the world calls the West Bank. Mm-hmm. They want Israel to give that back, even though Jordan has released all claims to it. Jordan says, no, okay, as of 1988, it's no longer our territory.
Well, I was actually in the back, so I didn't hear everything you were saying, so I apologize for that. But I do want to ask you a question.
Okay.
If you had more to say, go ahead and finish.
No, basically, it's just that that war continues for that same territory. I think the same entity worshipped by the Anakim and the later Philistine giants is the entity called Allah today.
Yes, and I think that we're going to see very soon here an actual really heating up of more beyond the borders of Israel and the surrounding nations into the Western nations becoming involved. NATO is really busy with Ukraine. That this proxy war is now becoming an actual war between NATO and Russia. But we see things sort of unstable in parts of the Middle East, even though there are some, like with the guy in the suit in Syria, that claim, oh, no, we're really stable here. We just want to build economy. Because we have Taiwan and China and North Korea and the BRICS nations that want to change things, a lot of economic stuff that's taking place between China and other countries to get rid of the petrodollar. I think within, and I'll say again, by 2030, the world will be entirely different.
Yeah, we're in very definitely a period of change here, which, if you subscribe to the idea of the fourth turning, and I forget the name of the book where that was brought out. I know Tom Horn had talked about that quite a lot before he passed.
I think it's actually called The Fourth Turning, one of them.
Maybe right. Anyway, it's an idea that we humans tend to live on 20-year cycles, and that fourth turning, 80 years on, is one of chaos and sometimes violent change. So you're looking at this happening around 2025. You go back 80 years, 1940, 45, World War II. You go back 80 years prior to that, 1860s. That was the American Civil War, and also
1850s
changes
to Crimea, and it
right.
led
A lot of
to
war
more
taking place in
Europe.
In Europe, and before that, you go back to about 1780 and the American Revolution, and again, a lot of things taking place in Europe. So it may be that that's what's going on here, and that there's very little we can do about it, because some of these forces, the logic behind them is just non-existent. It's got to be spiritual. The idea that NATO needs to provoke a war with Russia. Is it just that the military-industrial complex is trying to sell more weapon systems? Is it just profit-driven?
There's a lot of money being made on this.
There is, and I think this is one of. Again, it just boggles my mind that there are some people who would do that. But we look at the pharmaceutical industry and the lengths that they went to in the past 5 years to make billions, tens of billions of dollars. Yeah. So, and the lack of concern for how it affected the health of the people who were affected by that, and the same is happening in Ukraine.
And even though the Lord says that we cannot know the day or the hour, whether or not that refers to the Rosh Hashanah time of year or not, we can know the season when the Lord is going to return, because he tells us right out, when you see all these things happening, look up, because your redemption draweth near. So we are seeing these things beginning to happen.
Yes, and we're also seeing forces converge where even just a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have seen a plausible path by which the world came together against Israel, which is what Armageddon will be.
And this anti-Semitic spirit that is taking over, it makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. Inside the Christian church, no less.
I know.
The body of believers who are
they're open.
Commanded by Paul in Romans chapter 11, where that chapter to me is it's definitive. It seems very, very clear to me that Paul, who is drawing a distinction, he's very clearly delineating between, okay, you Gentile believers, even though I'm an Israelite, tribe of Benjamin, I am, grieving for my Jewish brothers and sisters, and yes, they have persisted in unbelief, so they are the branches that have been broken off the olive tree, and you've been grafted in. But remember, you are not supporting the root. It's the root that's supporting you. Now, the root, yes, the root is Jesus Christ. The tree, the branches, that is Israel, and many of them rejected. The early church, first century, were primarily Jewish. But Paul, clearly writing after many Jews had rejected Jesus Christ, and said they are enemies of the gospel, described them that way, said, and though they are enemies of the gospel so that you may be grafted in, don't be arrogant to those branches, toward those branches that have been broken off. God, in his kindness, has allowed you to be grafted in as long as you continue in his kindness. Like, okay, to me, that, and yet we're saying people who are coming up with various reasons why we should not support the Jews, not support Israel. And I just don't think any of that matters. I mean, did the Holy Spirit not know that the Jews would do that? Come on.
It is clear that the Jewish nation, the Jews, the tribes, are all part of the end times.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
some way or the other. And the majority of those are clearly marked. Clearly marked. 144,000 of them.
Yeah. Well, there are those who will say, no, that was fulfilled in the first century.
No, it wasn't. Okay. I'm sorry, but no.
Yeah, no. But even if you set that aside, go back to the book of Zechariah and the prophecy that all the world will come to war against Jerusalem. God's going to make Jerusalem a cup of staggering, a stumbling block for the nations, so that all who try to lift it will hurt themselves. The whole war will come to war against Israel. That has not happened yet in history.
When the Lord was asked by his disciples, what are the signs of your coming, of your returning, and of the end of the age, they understood what that meant. Although they were kind of stupid sometimes, they did understand that, and they asked him directly about it. And after saying wars and rumors of wars, nation against nation, earthquakes in diverse places, things like that, he said, when you see these things, when you see the abomination of desolation, very specific, run. Don't even stop to get your cloak or anything. Just run. These are Jewish believers. He was speaking to the Jewish nation, which at that time, at the end, the Lord being God Almighty,
right.
Jesus knew they would be in the land again. He knew they'd be kicked out, they would be dispersed, and the promise of bringing them back is throughout prophecy.
Right. And again, in Romans 11, Paul writes that, let me find it here, so I'm not trying to recall it from memory because my
Meanwhile,
memory...
Grace is saying, you're not scratching my belly.
Yeah, she's kicking me here with her foot. She's like, here. Lest you be wise in your own sight, I do not want you to be unaware of this mystery, brothers and sisters. A partial hardening has come upon Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. If we argue that the church has replaced Israel, then that verse suddenly means a partial hardening has come upon the church until the fullness of the church has come in. That makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
And in this way, all Israel will be saved. As it is written, the deliverer will come from Zion. The delivery will come from the Amazon. The deliverer will come from Zion. He will banish ungodliness from Jacob. How can he banish ungodliness from Jacob if Jacob has already accepted the saving grace and forgiveness of Jesus Christ?
Exactly. But listen, no matter how you feel about the Jewish people right now, understand that you are never, ever going to win them to Christ if you begin with hatred.
Exactly. That's the thing here. At the end of the day, and I get it, there is no special dispensation for any group of people on earth for salvation. We all need Jesus. But if you open your witness by saying you're following an occultic religion and this, that, and the other, they're going to shut you down. You are going to make yourself a stumbling block between them and Jesus. And I suggest that is not a place you want to be.
No, I can almost guarantee that the Lord will not be happy with you because of that.
Right. So, Anyway, yeah, this is a rising tide. Joel Richardson on social media has been posting a lot of good things.
He's been
lately.
posting such good stuff. There are quite a number of Messianic Jews on X who post some wonderful things. So if you're not an X, I encourage you to go on there. Again, it's as with any social media site, it's a minefield. You kind of have to be careful, but you'll realize pretty quickly the accounts that you can count upon.
Right. And the ones that are just trolls, hey, don't even give them the satisfaction of blocking them.
I know.
Just use the mute function so that you don't even see their posts. And that way,
there are trolls.
Yeah, they will just operate in their own little airless vacuum chamber, and that's where you want to keep them.
Well, speaking of Israel, we would like to encourage you to please join us in Israel. Derek and I love the people of Israel. We love the land. We love the Lipkins, who run the tour company that helps us to get to the great sites. They love archaeology just like Derek and I do. And we still plan to go in October. Now, there is a possibility that we'll change the date, but I can guarantee you, Lipkin Tours is so good about full refunds. Mm-hmm. If for some reason you cannot go on the new dates, they will give you your money back. So there's no risk.
Exactly.
Just sign up and say, yes, I want to go. And if you can't go on the new dates, if we change it, then you get your money back. And if we do go in October, then you'll get to go.
Yeah, great time of year to go. The weather nice and pleasant. Going in the summer months, June, July, as we found, even May can be really, really hot. But October will be very pleasant.
Oh, it's so beautiful. In fact, we went in the early spring last time we took a big tour, and I ended up taking a jacket with me and wore it most of the time. It's very likely late October will be the same thing. But just want to remind you that we are seeing fewer people sign up this time. Generally, last time we took a full tour, it was 120 people. We had 3 buses. We may only take 1 bus this time.
Right.
And 1 bus only holds about 40 people. Mm-hmm. So if you are really interested in going, then get your name in there now.
Right. You can find a sample itinerary and just see why we're so excited about going. We've got some new locations on this tour that we've not seen previously with a group, including the what we think is the historic baptismal site of Jesus.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. It's a little. You have to walk through a little bit of turf because it's essentially a sort of like cattle field.
Yeah, part of a park.
But it's undeveloped.
Yeah, and it overlooks the bank of the Jordan River, but the bank slopes down about 7,500 feet there down to Riverside, forming a natural theater. And there's a megalithic structure there that is a smaller twin of Gilgal Rephaim, Israel's Stonehenge. We think Jesus was baptized in the shadow of this megalithic structure as a declaration of war against the fallen realm.
And there's a possibility, and we can't take credit for this idea. It is Doug Van Dorn who actually, I think, came up with it.
Yes.
This may be the location of the feeding of the 5,000.
Right, the wilderness outside Bethsaida, referred to in the Gospel of Luke. So that is definitely on the tour. We also want to go to the dolmen field near the Shamir Kibbutz, which features the dolmen with the largest capstone ever found anywhere in Israel. The capstone in this dolmen is estimated at 50 tons.
It's huge.
And that, according to archaeologists, was the center of the dolmen building culture. A dolmen is a megalithic structure, looks like a big rock table. And it overlooks the valley through which the Jordan River flows, which we believe is the valley of the shadow of death. And we will explain why from Scripture.
So please join us. We would love to have you sign up and be on that tour. And again, it is a no-risk proposition.
Yeah.
If you are going to go, by the way, if you signed up to go with us, be sure that you get your visa in advance. You go to, and we'll put the link in the show notes to let you know where you need to go. It's very easy. I think it's 25 shekels, which is, I don't know, it's like $10, 1 shekel equals $4 or something like that. So about 25% of that. So not very much to get your visa, and it's good for 2 years. your Israeli visa. It used to be that you got it in Israel once you got into Tel Aviv, but now you will not get on the plane if you cannot show that you have a visa.
25 shekels is about $7.50.
Yep.
So very easy to do. And again, you'll find more information at gilberthouse.org/travel. As we mentioned, we're going to be in Ohio in 2 weeks. So the last Saturday of the month, no PID radio that weekend either, because we will be at the Go Therefore conference.
I know. We've got a lot of things coming up in the next few weeks. And, of course, in August, the Springfield, Missouri, the Hear the Watchman conference. And it's just about sold out. Yeah,
the Remnant Rising conference. Turns out this is going to be a pretty big deal. As of last count, I think we're talking over 500 are going to be in attendance. And that's wonderful. A lot of representation from Skywatch TV. Joe Artis Horn will be there. Of course, he'll be in Ohio as well. But Donna Howell will be speaking, and she is
Nita Horn.
And Nita Horn as well. Again, pretty much all of us from Skywatch TV. Mondo de la Vega of the Jim Baker Show will be at that one. Vicki Joy Anderson, and more information at gilberthouse.org. Look under the tab that says calendar, or look in the right-hand column. We've got upcoming events and conferences, and links in those. At those posts to the site for more information.
And now the old people talk.
By the way, when you sign up for the Remnant Rising Conference from Hear the Watchman, use promo code Gilbert20, Gilbert20, and you get $20 off.
Oh, yeah, that'll help us out. Thank you very much. Old people talk, morning. Derek he's actually able to tiny bit move his feet.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but considering that several months ago when they did the nerve conduction test, they found that my nerves were just basically
gone.
Yeah, they were not conducting any signals, because the autoimmune issue I'm dealing with, which is the result of this, also the cause of the raspy voice that you've heard me with the last, 8-10 months. It attacks the nerve insulation, the myelin sheath around the nerves. We have been trying to regrow that through a couple of different things that I'm taking that are supposed to help with that, and it appears that there is some success, which is good news, because typically the short-term solution, which is standard protocol for people with something called CIDP, which is sort of like Guillain-Barré syndrome, but chronic instead of acute, is a monthly treatment that's very expensive and wipes you out for like 4 days.
Yeah, but now they're not thinking it's CIDP. They're not thinking it's lupus.
Form of lupus, right. So we're going with a couple of substances, that hydroxychloroquine being one of them, that is used to deal with autoimmune issues. Basically turns down the thermostat on the immune response. And then testosterone and another supplement that we're getting from Eden's Essentials, which is
you get quite a number of things from
Eden's Essentials. Joe Horn is the CEO of Eden's Essentials, high quality supplements. EdensEssentials.com if you want to go to their website. Stinging nettle leaf.
Yeah, make sure you get the leaf.
Yeah, the root is got some other benefits, but the stinging nettle leaf is there's good research showing that it regrows myelin. So between the stinging nettle leaf and the testosterone, it appears that that is having some success.
Yeah, and mainly, I think, prayer. Many of you are out there praying, and we pray for Derek all the time. You've had so many people pray over you. So I just know that the Lord, in His timing, is going to restore all that He has taken away. And now, that what's going on is for the Lord's reasons, and I'm not going to question His reasons.
Well, amen to that.
They're really good. But my old lady report is that my first eye cataract surgery is on the 17th, and then 2 weeks later, on the 31st of this month of July, I will have the second eye done. And I am told by people who've had this done and had the same lens implant that I'm going to be getting are just amazed by it. So I am trusting in the Lord for this, and the protocol that I've been on for probable Sjogren's, which is probably what caused my cornea issues and all of the other nasty things that were going on with my eyes, styes, and all that kind of stuff. that may be secondary to Sjogren's disease. So been taking a protocol that helps with that, and it really does seem to have helped to the degree that my cornea is improved enough that I was able to get the refraction needed for the cataract surgery. So thank you for all of your prayers.
Amen to that. So looking
Clear
forward to...
Clear vision coming.
Yep. So by the time of the conference in August in Springfield, you should be able to see everybody very clearly.
It'll be frightening.
Yes.
I see you back there.
Yeah, because we're going for the X-ray vision upgrade.
Yeah.
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 So.
Not the Superman thing. We're not doing that.
No lasers from the eyes.
No, we don't have time to
Cyclops
actually get
and the
into
X-Men.
that stupid movie that's out now.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that another time.
Because there is something to talk about there. There's
No, don't even get into it.
Yeah, we're already over time.
I know.
Well, anyway, tomorrow we've got another Gilbert House Fellowship Bible study. We are back into the historical books of the Old Testament. And as time allows, next week will be kind of busy because we've got the doctor's appointments and some other things. But the Bible's Greatest Mysteries is coming back. We've got a couple of episodes with Sean Tabbitt about his book, The NDE Conspiracy, talking about near-death experiences that we will get out there within the next couple of weeks.
I think that's a really important topic to bring up for a lot of reasons, but there was a video on X that was all over the place of a boy who was in the hospital and having what appears to be a vision of Jesus and his dead father. It's one of those videos that it's difficult to tell when you see something like that online what the legitimacy is of it. But right. I know that Sean Tabbitt has interviewed a lot of people who've had visions like that. So the assumption is that the boy literally was seeing something. I think a lot of the questions on X have to do with the response of the people in the room. A, why are you videoing this? And B, why do some people sound as if they are either dismissive or nervous laughter? It's kind of an interesting video, but I think this is a real phenomenon. And I'm so glad that he's written a couple of books on this. Right,
and addressing it from a Christian perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, that'll be forthcoming in the weeks ahead at the Bible's Greatest Mysteries, which again you can access, as with all of our content, through our app, gilberthouse.org/app or pidradio.com/app. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you find your podcasts, because we are wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Everywhere.
Yep. And until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and for Grace and Glory, who are napping on the couches. Bye-bye, everybody.
PID Radio is produced by Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, Twitter @PID Radio, or the PID Radio page at Facebook. Join us each week for our online Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, online at gilberthouse.org.